Well, good evening.
Recording in progress.
Good morning. In the Zendo we have Alex, Griffin, Mabani and myself, Neti. And on Zoom we have Emmy from Sydney, Mark from Pennsylvania, Kai who is in, I've forgotten the state that you're in right now, near Upaya, under that.
Santa Fe.
Santa Fe, that's right, it's Santa Fe, and Evan from Santa Cruz. So welcome everyone. The title of this talk is Leaving Nothing Out. There are two koans from the Mumon, the Gateless Barrier collection, that I'd like to reference today. The first one is case 18, Tung Shan's 3 pounds of flax. A monk asked Tung Shan, "What is Buddha?" Tung Shan said, 3 pounds of flax. And the verse that goes with this is, "Thrusting forth 3 pounds of flax, the words are intimate, mind is more so. If you argue right and wrong, you are a person of right and wrong." The second koan from this collection is case 21, Yun Men's dried shit stick. A monk asked Yun Men, "What is Buddha?" Yun Men said, "Dried shit stick." And Women's verse, "A flash of lightning sparks from Flint. If you blink your eyes, it's already gone." So in the history of Buddhism, it has tended to be a very inclusive tradition. In Buddha's time, people who are outcast in various ways were included in his sanghas. Anyone could join his sanghas. It took a little while for women to be able to join, but women were also able to join. To have sanghas that included anyone, with people from higher classes mixing with people from lower classes, was really quite a thing. You know, it was quite a development. It was not common. And in Buddha's time, there was also a strong recognition of, you could say, the sacredness of animals, including insects and worms and fish, creatures often that tend to be neglected. There was some precedent for that. You know, Jainism prior to Buddhism also has and still does, has a very strong sense of caring for all sentient beings, no matter how tiny. And then as Buddhism moved into China, sort of Taoist influences extended that sense of inclusion to be inanimate, non-sentient beings such as mountains and rivers, landscapes, tables, chairs, the gate at the front of the monastery. The pantry, rocks and clouds. So one of our challenges, you could say, or one of the invitations we have, is to gently and quietly reflect on places that our imagination doesn't tend to go. And see if we can extend our compassion. Recently, my mother, who's in her late 80s, about a year or so ago became vegetarian, and recently she visited me and she said, with great sincerity, she said, "How was it that for 80 years I never thought about the fact that my food came from animals? How was it that I did that for 80 years? And of course, there's all sorts of answers one could give from a psychological and cultural perspective. But what I said mainly was just to meet her failing, if you'd like to call it that, just to meet her failing with compassion. And, it's great that she has woken up to the way factory animals are treated and has chosen to be vegetarian, and that's all she needs to do, is just focus on that. Don't worry about the 80 years. So that's an example of imagination not being able to reach somewhere. And all of us, our imaginations don't reach somewhere. You know, nobody's excluded from that. So Tung Shan was asked, "What is Buddha?" And he replied, 3 pounds of flax. I thought it would be interesting to read a little bit of Robert Aitken's commentary about this question, what is Buddha? Because it comes up all through Zen literature. There's 4 koans in this collection with that start with that question, what is Buddha? So I'll read a little bit from his commentary on this case. The Buddha is the first of the 3 treasures of Buddhism, the other 2 being Dharma and Sangha. The name refers first to Shakyamuni, the founder of our way, the enlightened one. It also refers to many other figures in the Buddhist pantheon. We recite the so-called 10 names of Buddha during our meal service. And I won't recite it now, but the chant is actually very similar in both the Dharma and Sangha and in our Soto lineage of Suzuki Roshi, very similar chant. And this is what Robert Aitken says about this 10 names of Buddha. The first 3 entries on this list are the archetypal 3 bodies of the Buddha, standing for the 3 fundamental aspects of reality. Dharmakaya, the void that is charged with infinite possibilities. Sambhogakaya, the fullness and harmony of the universe and its beings. And I just want to say something about this, the fullness and harmony of the universe and its beings, the Sambhogakaya. There are very beautiful and subtle teachings on perfection, on the perfection of the world as it is. And it can bring us great peace, internal peace, when we understand that everything is as it is because of all the prior causes and conditions, and that it could not in this moment be any other way. But in the next moment, we're an influencing factor. But in the current moment, as it actually is, you can say it's perfect, because it could be no other way given all the causes and conditions. But there is so much flux that every following moment we are an influencing factor, which is very beautiful. And then the Nirmanakaya, the unique individuality of each being and the infinite variety of the universe. And it's probably this part that I'm going to speak about most, the infinite variety of the universe, the Buddha manifesting and showing up in an infinite variety of ways. Then Maitreya is the future Buddha, potent in each of us and in the world. Sometimes people think of Maitreya Buddha as just sort of a mythical future Buddha, as an actual sort of just a separate future Buddha. But it's also a way to think of ourselves as revealing our own Buddha nature, revealing our own Buddhahood ourselves. So it's our future awakened selves. And then the next one is all Buddhas are at once the unknown enlightened ones and also all beings, everyone enlightened. This is pointing to that there is a sense of all beings, as I mentioned at the beginning, are Buddha. And the next one is, as sort of included as a Buddha, is the Lotus Sutra, an allegorical devotional text included. It's sort of a mark of widespread veneration of Mahayana Buddhism. And even Zen, where we tend to be a little more austere, the Lotus Sutra is included in our sort of canon of texts that we read. Very sort of floral, exuberant text. And then Manjushri is the bodhisattva of wisdom, and I thought it might be nice to mention, Alex, would you be able to hand me our Manjushri there? We were recently given as a gift by an artist in Sydney, thank you, Janet Selby, this wonderful Manjushri. Rebel's seen it here, so I'll show it to you on Zoom. Manjushri is holding a sword and a scroll, so sort of symbolizing the teachings, the wisdom of the teachings, and then the sword of wisdom that cuts through delusion. And Manjushri is sitting on a lion. It's this beautiful lion, is its tail. And Janet's work tends to often have this sort of pointy head, which is a little less common for Manjushri, but I was mentioning it to a few people and they said, you know, it reminded them of, I think it's called a pandita, which is a traditional hat. You see it more in Tibetan Buddhism than other. This tall hat, which is sort of worn by sort of senior Rinpoches. So in a way, maybe that's what Manjushri is wearing here. So this is a wonderful new addition to our altar. Thank you. So Manjushri is a bodhisattva of wisdom holding both a book of learning and a sword for cutting off delusion. And then Samantabhadra is the bodhisattva of great action, where we step out into the world, turning the Dharma wheel for all beings. Here's our Dharma wheel on our altar here, this amazing printing press, which we've turned into an altar. And Avalokiteshvara is Kuan Yin, sometimes Kannon, sometimes Kanzeon, the bodhisattva of mercy, the one who hears the sounds and the cries of the world. And enlightened by these sounds, she includes them all as she enters into the world's work. And finally, all bodhisattvas are included and all mahasattvas. When we say bodhisattvas, mahasattvas in our chanting as well. And then together with Prajna Paramita, the perfected wisdom. So in this question, what is Buddha? You could say all the 10 Buddhas. Well, you know, it's not just asking what is Buddha as in Shakyamuni Buddha. It's sort of asking, well, another way of even thinking about this question, what is Buddha, is to say, who am I? Who am I? And Tung Shan says, 3 pounds of flax. That's what you are. 3 pounds of flax. I think I recall reading somewhere that flax was used as fibre for sewing the robes. But flaxseed is also something that is, you know, used for grain, for bread, for adding to food as well. So the first line of the verse is thrusting forth 3 pounds of flax. The world thrusts forth 3 pounds of flax every moment of every day. There it is, thrust in front of us every moment of every day. Can we see it? Can we receive it? And I've got a note here, can we see it and receive it both as the sort of Sambhogakaya, the sort of blissful perfection of the world as it is in this moment, and can we see it as a Namanakaya, as this perfect representation or perfect expression, not representation, perfect expression or appearance of these 10 Buddhas. And then the next line is, the words are intimate, mind is more so. So the words, 3 pounds of flax, behind those words is this intimate mind, this vast, vast mind. And we can cultivate that vast mind in our zazen. And then the last two lines are, if you argue right and wrong, you are a person of right and wrong. And I have a very strong memory of discussing this koan with a teacher once, and I was very, very active in my activism at that time, and I was feeling very strident. And so when we discussed this line, if you argue right and wrong, you're a person of right and wrong, I went, and that's how it is. Quite forcefully. And it was so interesting because what the teacher did is he just sort of went like, oh, okay, all right. And years later, I reflected on that. I'd always felt slightly like, I don't know, I feel a bit bad about that. And years later, I thought that was the teaching, the way the teacher didn't say to me, hold on a second, you're on dangerous territory, saying, and that's how it is. That's dangerous territory to be too sure that you are right about something. It took many years later for me to just kind of like gently dropped. Oh, there was the teaching actually, right there. By the teacher not telling me I was wrong, he was actually not being a person of right and wrong, right for me. I couldn't see it at the time. At the time, I felt good with just this little slight niggling sense that I'd overstepped the mark somehow, but not conscious. It was just sort of like sitting at the back. I think it's one of the many wondrous things about having a practice that has a lot of zazen and contemplation in it. It's because years later, something will reveal itself to us. We are quiet enough in our minds that something that was sitting back there comes to the front and go, oh, I get that now. So since that kind of coin dropped for me, I've been much more careful about thinking that I'm right about anything. Provisionally right about some things, but just not right, not thinking I'm right. You argue right and wrong, you're a person of right and wrong. It's a caution. It's a really strong caution for us. Better to be flexible. Without being wishy-washy, of course. We still have to function. And then the next case was case 21, Yun Min's dried shit stick. A monk asked Yun Man, what is Buddha? Yun Man said, dried shit stick. And Yun Man he features in many of the koan curriculums, collections, and he was known for often having sort of very short words, and I like the way Robert Aitken describes it as noetic, which sort of means the word or short number of words are insightful, but don't ask of you to be logical. They don't ask for logic. So he responded, what is Buddha? He responded, dried shit stick. And I've got a note here from Yuan Wu, who compiled the Blue Cliff Record. He was commenting on Yun Man, and he says about his teaching style. He says his teaching style, containing the whole world, cutting off the myriad streams, following the waves. So these words, these brief words of Yun Man's, contain the whole world, they cut off the myriad streams of delusion, and they following the waves, which is that sort of sense of infinite flux, where everything's in constant flux, nothing is fixed. So this shit stick, as you may know or not know, maybe still in some places where people don't go to the supermarket and buy toilet paper, they use sort of softened sticks, sometimes like corn cobs, in the outhouse in place of toilet paper. So they're the kind of thing that you probably don't want to spend much time thinking about, don't really want to spend much time being in the company of. But there they are. Here they are, dried shit sticks. So the 10 Buddhas are there in the dried shit stick. And this is just so important for us to hold in our bodies, that the 10 Buddhas are in everything, even a dried shit stick. And if they're there, then where could they not be? Where could they not be? And the verse that goes with this case is, "A flash of lightning sparks from Flint." And I love that line, "A flash of lightning sparks from Flint." I don't know if you've ever done, sort of used flint and steel to light a fire. With my youngest son, he was very into survival skills. Well, he still is. And when he was young, we would get flint and steel and we would, make a fire without using matches. He would love doing that in the backyard. And that striking it is just a split second where you see that spark. It's so brief. Just happens for a tiniest amount of time. And can we respond to the world with that sense of attention, that we don't want to miss the tiniest spark from Flint, like a flash of lightning. And in that flash, can we have a compassionate heart? Now, the other day, I was at an Extinction Rebellion event where we put a large banner across a bridge above a freeway saying climate and ecological emergency, a very large banner. And while we were there, a person gave us the finger and shouted out something unpleasant. And one person sort of said something a little bit unpleasant back. So that was like a flash of lightning that actually just got missed. And then I just said, and I jumped in, I hope she didn't mind, I went, no, we're doing it for him. We're doing this for him. And she went, "You're right. Yep, sorry about that." So things like that come up in front of us very suddenly. And we want to cultivate ourselves in our zazen, in our contemplative practice and in our sangha relationships. We want to practice and cultivate so that when that flash happens, we naturally move towards a compassionate response. That we naturally see the 10 Buddhas in whatever that is, whatever that shit stick is. We see the 10 Buddhas. Of course, that's a lifelong practice. And then the other two lines for the verse is, "If you blink your eyes, it's already gone." It's another way of saying, now. Because once it's gone, which is fine. Once it's gone, it's gone. It's fine, it's gone. But it's nice to see that flash of lightning and not miss it. So I think I'll stop there. And if anyone would like to comment or ask a question, please go ahead. In the Zendo or on Zoom. Griffin.
More of just a comment, but recently I've been really enjoying sort of thinking about how in Buddhism a lot of the teachings seem far more sort of, you can say a lot with very little, or in fact, you can say more by saying less, if that makes sense. That thing you mentioned with one of your teachers, the way that they responded by not saying something was, a much more sort of effective way of communicating that truth than if they had tried to explain it. And I just really like that, how much you can say by not saying anything.
Yes. Were you able to hear what Griffin said there on Zoom? Good, good, good. Yes, thank you, Griffin. That's right. And we can, when we notice those things that happen to us, like what happened to me, then we can find ourselves doing the same thing. Like my older son who's not vaccinated, telling me that it's like the flu. It's like, well, I hope you're right. That's what I said. Well, I hope you're right. That was probably the best response. Oh dear. We're such fools. Anybody else? Henry?
I really like both of these cases because I think they really remind me that there's nothing that can be excluded from my practice, and there's nothing that can ultimately sort of drive me away from practice, even difficulties within practice, difficulties within the Sangha, like even if something horrible happens within a Sangha and a lot of people lose faith in a particular teacher or a particular tradition, like that does not mean that practice is lost, that difficulty itself becomes part of practice. And I really like that. I sort of feel held by that sort of no matter what, there's always practice there.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I really like that point that you just made, that nothing can drive us away from practice. If we see the 10 Buddhas in everything, then even if something happens in Sangha life, that's not going to be enough to drive us away from practice, because we'll see the 10 Buddhas in that person or event. Yeah, thank you.
I think.
Oh, Kai, you have your hand up. Thank you, Alex, for noticing.
Right, the last comment reminded me of something someone told me when I started my practice at Santa Cruz Zen Center in 1987. And they said, this practice is impossible, I vow to do it. And all these years, that comes up for me quite a lot. And I just say it again out loud, this is impossible, but I'm gonna do it. And I had a moment of epiphany when I was driving out here to New Mexico from Oregon down through California. It rained nonstop, it was pitch black, and the driving there was so different than what I was used to. It's very aggressive. And I could only go about 60 miles an hour with my little trailer. And I was so just frustrated and angry, and I couldn't settle down, and I was mad at all the people who were almost killing me. I did that terrible driving. And about halfway down through the Central Valley, this idea just popped out, that whole just now. It was, I don't care. And I got into a little bit of a philosophical thing. I said, well, what about the people you know who really just don't care? They're not enlightened. So how are you going to enlighten by saying you don't care? There's a difference. But it really settled me when I finally just said, I might get there by Christmas Eve, because that was kind of my goal. I was about a week late getting started. And once I really wrapped my head and my heart and everything around the fact that it is just now, it's like, what you're doing just now. Just pay attention to your driving, and you'll get there sooner or later. So what if you don't get there when you want to get there? It really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, and I really don't care. And it's been working really well for the last few days. I don't care. Of course, I care probably more than I should about almost everything, but not in that obsessive kind of way right now. It's just like, wow, it is what it is, Internet doesn't work, that's okay. We'll try it anyway, right? The drivers are horrible. Well, hopefully everybody will drive, and not get killed, including the terrible drivers, because I don't care. I don't care so much that I'm going to get this upset and not take advantage of this amazing moment in time. And it is, it's every moment. Every moment is amazing. And unless we grab onto every moment, I find myself getting, frustrated and disappointed and blah, blah, blah. So this practice is impossible. I have to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kai. Thank you so much. All right, on that wise note, let's finish up and do our closing chant. Beings are numberless, I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassable, I vow to become it.